Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Titans. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So in the aftermath of the last episode, you have Jason showing up in front of Scarecrow being like, hey, you know, he's like, oh, you're not pissed? He's like, nah, I'm actually proud of you. Oh, what you did last night? Oh, that was awesome. It's like, he's like, you're really not pissed? He's like, of course not. I'm not the Batman. I'm cool if it's fine. What you did was, it's so amazing. But then he talks about the fact, conversation comes up about the other 5 crime bosses not being, you know, like, copacetic with everything going down. And he can, you know, lights up, so, you know, with his inhaler, so he can, go show them like who's the boss, which I think is so interesting because he made a whole point last episode. That's because it's like you saying that makes it go like, oh, like you don't see Crane as a boss. It's more like it seems like it's yours when you're just going by his playbook. But the moment after he inhales, like Crane gave him a little special concoction and it's like, what'd you do? It's like, oh, like I told you, not the Batman. I'm like, it is that thing of like he is just got this cool calmness exterior and it's like, nah, do not ever go against my wishes and my goals again. So obviously you have like the 5 crime bosses together finding out like, right, the chaos that got ensued is because of, you know, Red Hood, but it's like, right, like we're supposed to be making some money, like can't really do much crime when the chaos isn't profitable, you know. It's like, yeah, so like what's this all about? But then Jonathan Crane shows up and I think it speaks volumes that when they see him it's like, oh crap, Scarecrow. They don't say like Crane, to go Scarecrow. Like the fact is he doesn't even need to get up, because I think it's so interesting to know, like, because obviously this is a point where a lot of Batman's big time villains have already well been established. So like when a villain rolls up, when a top tier psychopath villain like him rolls up, it's like, oh, you show respect. He might not have to get up, but he doesn't need to get up to be the psychopath Scarecrow that he is. And it, you know, because even one of the people, like one of the other crime bosses goes, refers to him as Doctor. So I think that's interesting because he's like, don't worry, if I was going to gash you and basically have you claw your own eyelids out, something of that nature, he's like, I would have already done it. You know, so it's like, hey, let's talk business. Essentially, he wants to spread his drug around because drug isn't about anti-fear. It's about freedom, that basically you free yourself from your conscience. Like, you know, what could be more addictive than freedom? And basically he's going to have like Red Hood protect like the shipments and stuff like that. But I need you guys to be basically the distributors because he wants to move this inhaler stuff onto a much larger scale. Because basically he's trying to control Gotham. For him, it's like, I want to cure Gotham. That's all I've ever wanted to do. Basically rid people of their fear, but also like by having them swayed and underneath this drug of his, he gets to ensue chaos, but also he basically is able to reign the entirety of Gotham under him. So he gets to reign over it. So that's kind of like his main mission in all of this. So Dick and Barbara work together on trying to track down Crane, but because at first Connor tries using the Bat computer to like track him down, but it's impossible. So they have no choice but to turn to Oracle, which Barbara has a reservation. She doesn't like it, but she never destroyed it because she's like, I saw a future where we didn't have it, because Bruce actually needed Oracle to take down Crane 2 years ago. So, and once again, getting it, look at it and everything, and getting a taste of what it can do, I think it is the same thing that he does in the Christopher Nolan Batmans. The thing that more like Lucius Fox, Morgan Freeman's character is kind of like, I don't like this you use it, because this thing basically taps into everything. It taps into phone lines all across the city. Like there's no such thing as privacy even more. Like even the fact is, like Barbara was like, I'm reluctant to use it because like government slapped down on us. I don't want to go to jail for using this thing because it's super illegal to do this, because you're tapping into like your wiretapping into everything, cameras, cell phones and stuff like that. Like, so you're doing some super illegal stuff, but obviously it's a situation, because once again, I think it's so fascinating because when I hear Oracle, I just think of Barbara taking up the mantle, but maybe it's like because she worked in conjunction with the system. Like, I just knew it was a code name of hers because I thought it was kind of like her watching over like the Bat family. I thought that was kind of it, kind of like, oh, I'm here to just watch over you and make sure everything is okay. So that's why, like, I thought she was like, because Oracle, she's supposed to like see what they can't. Which, I mean, that still is applicable in this case. I mean, it's even more so applicable in this case of, like, Oracle having, like, being able to see, like, the power of sight, being able to see beyond what normal eyes could see. I mean, that's what this Oracle program is. But like I said, I thought it was just more so a code name. So I don't know, and I have to research it a little bit more of knowing whether or not there was actually a computer system that Barbara used. So it kind of went hand in hand. But it did seem like that's just her role. I guess that was their way of, like, instead of her becoming Oracle, I mean, maybe that's a comic book thing. Maybe some stuff she is just Oracle itself, while other things times it is just legitimately a system. Like I said, maybe it's a thing of, like, them conjunction makes Oracle in some cases. But whatever the case may be, this thing is, like, highly, like, oh, it looks up, immediately updates itself, because it's like, oh, I'm sorry about Jason. Oh, I'm sorry about Hank. It's like, right, it's like, yeah, when I'm offline and being brought back on, I have to immediately get caught up with everything. Very, I guess, you can almost get some, like, Westworld vibes from it as well in certain regards. But they end up pinpointing Jonathan because they're based on a conversation he was having. So Dick and Connor went to go check it out, but it turned out to be a trap. Last guy they were able to save, but this guy they couldn't, because Connor couldn't use the same tactics because it had been modified. So it is, and I think this speaks volumes that when the guy died, it's kind of like, all right, let's move on. And then Dick just goes off, and you just see Connor standing there for a second like, oh, we're not going to focus on the fact there's a guy, just an innocent guy died. We couldn't do anything about it. Like, Dick wasn't too heartbroken about it, because I think for him, it's like, right, he's focused on a mission of stopping crime. It's like, in the grand scheme of things, there could be so much more death and chaos. We got over a whole bunch of people injured and over a dozen killed because of just 3 inhalers, like 30,000 on the street. It's going to be mayhem. So it is a situation where I think for him, like, taking down Jason and Crane is like the focus, but that being like focusing on the mission and not the people you're supposed to be saving, I guess is a thing of, like, right, you can't save everyone if you get too bogged down by it. But it's also like, yeah, that's that cold, calculating nature of, like, Batman in that regard. Like, you're becoming a little bit like Bruce. I think all the stuff you hate about Bruce, like, you are slowly shifting and turning into that, whether it's out of necessity or whether you don't even recognize it yourself. But like I said, I think it speaks volumes that Connor stood there for a second looking at it, just kind of like, I wish I could have saved it, and just like Dick just kind of moved on like it was nothing, because it turns out Crane had hacked Oracle, and now it's like, right, so that's what the whole, like, Lady Vic getting her picture, like, last episode, I was like, it's like, I guess they kind of made like a 3D model to fool Oracle so that they could, like, get it operational, because it's like, oh, I recognize Barbara Gordon's face, like, okay, so that was interesting though. At the same time, there's a whole situation with Blackfire and Starfire going to Valeska, the mobster, and asking her for help. And it's just like, it's Firestar something, and it's just like, I should call the cops. I am feeling uneasy. He's like, don't worry, I'm not here for you. Because even she had to explain it to Blackfire too, like, you're going to tell your friend Dick Grayson? It's like, no. Dick, his parents were murdered by a mobster, so he would be less likely inclined to do this. And even her being like, oh, that's basically saying like, oh, it's stupid, like letting like your personal issues like that get in the way of like once again, it's a very human thing of like, not many people can compartmentalize. So it's like, obviously he's not going to show that same leeway to like a mobster, even if this is unrelated to the person who killed his parents. You're still in the same line of work. So what happened to my parents, so many other people could be going through it because of these other mobsters. So it's like, nah, I'm not going to, But Starfire is kind of like, it's a necessary evil if you want to get a step ahead of Crane. So she ends up going, because there's also the conversation about like, it's almost like the lesser evil or the greater good in certain regards. I forgot what it was that, it's the right and wrong, essentially. That basically, if your choices are, if you are, when it comes to being your decision, like if it weighs more in the 51%, then you kind of have no, like you have to go with it. When you're kind of given no choice, and when you're given those options, you go with the one that is the 51% good. It's not all good, but it's better than the 49% other option. So it's like even at 1%, which is kind of not. It's an interesting perspective, but it's like, it's kind of like, it's like, even Starfire been like, so did you think of that? Did you, because their dad had taught them that, and she was like, so did you say that to Dad's face while you were murdering him and Mom? So, because she was saying like, do you want to know why I killed her parents. And Starfire was just kind of like, she just assumed, like, yeah, it's for power, wasn't it? Which we'll get into that later. But Velasquez, she wanted her son. I was like, huh, that's interesting. And Starfire like goes ahead, makes the deal. It's like, fine, I'll do this for you in turn for information about Crane. And convinces the son wanted nothing to do with her because like if I go back, like you don't know what my mom is, who she's capable of, and even Starfire being like, she's your parent. Like you might not like what she's doing, that's fine, but she is at the end of the day, she's your mother. All the stuff that's going to go down, like she just wants to protect you. Obviously, Blackfire knows all about like the complicated family situation, so. And Starfire is the one that convinced him to come back. It's like, just, you're helping us save the day. So, let that be your focus. And she's so happy to see her son. And you're like, okay, like, how's this going to play out? And she shoots her son in the head. And it's like, yeah, her son was ratting on her to the FBI. And it's like, I had to take care of him and stuff like that. And all the Blackfire being like, what a surprise. Like, she was so nonchalant about it. And obviously, it hits Starfire's like, I promised him that he'd be okay. And she's like, yeah, you shouldn't make promises you can't keep. Well, you held up your end of the bargain, I'll help you. And it's like, oh, I like to shake on the moment. She's like, I'm going to shake on him. I was like, are you just going to burn her hand a little bit? It's like, oh, no, you're not going to just burn her hand a little bit. You burn her from the inside out to the point she's nothing but ash. And, just because it's like, right, you kill, like the fact is, what kind of mother would kill her own son regardless of everything? Probably your son turned on you because of the monster that you are. So it's like, you just proved his point. So it's like, right, if he, this is, I guess, like her way of kind of getting justice for Michael in its own right. And, obviously Dick calls her up later on about like, wait, you made a deal with the monster. She's like, yeah, that's kind of an overstatement. No, it's a lot more of an overstatement or something of that nature. It's like, yeah, it's a lot more complicated essentially. But, they ended up finding out that finding that the guy who died in the van was, electric, like ran like the electric company or whatever like that, and so they went to check the powers of like, okay, like he's got to be drawing in a whole bunch of power. Granted, he's kept it enough a lower grade, like, and it's a lot of power, but it was enough kind of spread out that he was able to kind of keep it up with no one noticing. That's why the Bat computer couldn't like lock onto it, but it only gave them a general area. But they ended up figuring out it was related to Mr. Freeze. Like, I guess like I wasn't 100% understanding like how that correlate. I guess it's like, oh yeah, they needed Freon, and like the best place, I guess that was one of like Mr. Freeze's places or something, or at the very least like one of the places he constantly got his Freon from. So they knew exactly where to go. When it's just kind of like when Barbara's like, oh, Victor, and he's like, oh, they're like, Victor's like Victor Freeze. So that's interesting. But also an important conversation happened between Starfire and Blackfire, where it's like, do you know what happened to why, like, I had to kill our parents? You're finally willing to listen? Well, because like Starfire was like, please don't tell me, please don't tell me you told me so. It's like, right, I know we needed Velasquez to get the evidence. It's like, but no, it's like that anger you're feeling right now, it's what I felt. Because it turns out after the whole Trigon thing, Starfire never came back to Tamarin, and the people were there was unrest around Tamarin because it's like, our chosen wonderful princess, like, why would she not come back? And then Blackfire got to blame. It's like, oh, you're the cursed child, and some were even saying like, hey, if we kill her, maybe Starfire will come back. And at the end of the day, you know what happened? Our parents, in a means of keeping up peace, keeping their power, they were willing to sacrifice me, their lesser daughter, because it's like, well, it's not like we're sacrificing Starfire, so, it's like that 51-49% thing again. It's like, right, that's what made her, she decided that's what made her kill her parents, because she's like, they never gave me a choice, so I had no choice, so I killed them because of it. I thought with me taking the throne, I could, appease and bring some peace. Nope, they'd super not be okay with that, because that just kind of coincides with like what they were already thinking, like, oh, like she got rid of Starfire so she could take the throne, so she wants Starfire to come back so we can rule the throne side by side. We never really get to that point, but I am curious, like, will Starfire go back to Tamarin? She enjoys it on Earth. That's why she stayed here. She found a new home here on Earth. But if it means the betterment of her people, being there for her sister for the first time, it's like, because I mean, not unless she will be like, no, why don't you stay on Earth? But it's like, right, are you going to stay away from your home forever? So those are big questions. But obviously, I do like. Well, I skipped over it a little bit, but there is the whole situation of Oracle, Barbara having to shut it down because that was the whole thing Crane was talking about, getting the Titans to destroy themselves. This one device is what they needed to. Batman needed to find me, and if I could get the Titans to basically destroy it, then I've won. The one tool they need to find me, and they won't have it anymore, because for him it's because if Crane has access to it, they can't trust it and it's too dangerous. Dick wanted to use it as a means of like, right, we can probably feed him false information and use it against him. But obviously Barbara, she's scared because it's like, you almost died and I'd rather you not come too close. We already lost too many people associated with this. Like, obviously, like, you know, I'm sure like losing Hulk, like Hank, like that, like probably put that cemented even more in her mind. Like, right, because, you know, the others have the benefits of superpowers and stuff like that. Dick isn't. He's just a regular dude in a suit, just with some very good fighting skills. So it is out of concern. But obviously, Dick telling her not to get emotional under these circumstances. You got to be stronger. And she's almost like, what? It's like, yeah, Bruce will basically be so proud of you in this moment. He's kind of like, yeah, I'm sorry that I'm kind of, you know, she said, it's like, whatever. But, once again, I did like that they just lean into it more and more, the whole Connor and Blackfire thing. I love he was like, well, is that... She's like, don't worry, you know, that thing ketchup. He's like, that's not ketchup. And she's just kind of like, what, can you see things on like molecular level or something? He's like, no, I just know what ketchup looks like, and it's not ketchup. And he's like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. But Starfire comes over, it's like, yeah, it's time to roll out. But she ends up giving Blackfire some gauntlets, because it's like, right, I wasn't there for you before, and you had to kind of struggle because of that. So... you know, she's trying to make amends, and it's like, right, you come along with us to be the good guys. So her sister doesn't have the fire, which I was wondering, I was curious, like, how they were going to handle that, because she doesn't have that. So I wonder, will it eventually manifest itself, or will that end up being her powers? Are they just going to make it so she doesn't have powers in this or not? Because I was wondering, like, when she put the gauntlets on, because it's like, oh, Tamarin technology, I thought it was going to potentially replicate her Starfire's power, but instead of, like, it'd be black flames, you know, very... Amaterasu, Naruto. I thought maybe something kind of along those lines of, like, maybe that's kind of design that they would go with for her flames, but it's like, no, I guess it's just meant to be like the badass armor of it, like folding on her like that. And I love, like, Connor being like, you look good. So I guess that's all it is, because I guess it just gives them, it's just like warrior armor. Like, who we didn't really get, because the superhuman strength and stuff like that, I think it's already hers. I don't see that being done any differently. Like, I don't see that, like, enhancing her beyond that. But they ultimately go down, and the Titans roll through and bust up the operation. This is the first time Guard's ever done that, like, full, like, battle-wise, like, partial transformation, which I've been reading Tower of God more recently, and that's one of the introductions, like the canine people who do it's a whole thing, but like in Tower of God there's these people known as the canine people who can do like partial transformations of their body. So it made me think of that. The way he was looking at his hand was almost like, whoa, I didn't know I could do that. Just like only just transform part of my body like that. It's happened in like fits of anger, stuff like that, but he's never done it like fully intentionally, and usually because it's only like it kind of manifests itself in like his face. Yeah. And now obviously Blackfire being like, oh, superhuman strength, X-ray vision, all this, like super hearing, like what else? He's like, oh, I love, she's like, oh, I can't wait to find out. He's like, I basically goes on the lines of like, yeah, I'd love you to find that out sometime too. I'm like, yo, I can't believe this is happening. This is wild. So that's definitely going to be interesting. But and I thought it was interesting. At first, I thought like Crane was like faking it when he was like, no. It's like, no, he was just so full of himself, believing like, no, I got the one, I won up them. But they came this close, and it's like, no, this can't be happening. So he cuts Jason free and bails. But things are going to be different because Jason's not going to be too copacetic. You know, he is not too keen on, you know, it's like, oh, I've been betrayed by everyone, you know, whether it's Dick, whether it's Bruce. Now it's like, yeah, definitely the same thing with, you already betrayed me this time. So it's like, I'm going to keep playing along, but I'm going to wait for the opportunity, like, to stab you in the back type of thing. So But luckily, they did, they shut down Crane's operation. They destroyed a lot of those inhalers, arrested some mob bosses. So it all worked out at the end. Let's completely ignore the fact is I killed a mob boss. But it's like, well, it's not like we haven't kind of crossed that line in certain regards in others. So it's kind of like, eh. But also, I'm sure like it was kind of on the hush and hush on like what Blackfire and Starfire were up to. So we'll kind of let that slide, I guess. But it's like, yep, success. But then the, Barbara and Dick situation of them kind of picking things up. It's like, she's like, did you want to actually in my place? And before he even says anything, she's like, I didn't want you to leave. He's like, can I actually answer? And she's like, sorry. So it's cute. It's interesting. Like I said, I have to look into that deeper, like whether or not Dick and Barbara getting together. Is that something they've just done for the show, or has that happened in the comics? Because I would have never... to be fair, I don't know if this happens in the comic. I just know it's a thing because people talked about it in the, like, movie adaptation of The Killing Joke. I know Batman and Barbara get together, so that's weirder. Because in my head, like, any of the Robins and Barbara have always just been, like, siblings. So, like, her and Dick being together, but it's, like, it's not like, it's just, like, they're allies and comrades. They're not, like, actual siblings, but in my head, they always were. So I don't know if, like... they probably have gotten together before in the comics. It's probably not that strange, but it's just like, that was on my own mentality. Obviously, like, the Bruce and Barbara thing was kind of a super weird one. But that's why it's just like, this is kind of new to me, like Barbara and Dick getting together like that. But we'll see if it kind of lasts, though, because obviously, like, a lot of Dick's relationships haven't panned out in the course of this show. So this one hit its bumpy road, but all this time later they found their way back to each other. So we'll see if it keeps up or not. So other than that, we do have Gar finding a letter because he went sniffing around Jason's room because he's trying to get inside of Jason's head to any clues that would lead him. It's like, right, when you have one stash, you have another stash just in case your first stash gets found. So he had a letter or something. We never found out what it was until the very end, where Gar goes and meets with Molly, because the whole plan is to take down Jason and Crane, because the rest of the team isn't worried about saving him anymore. At least Dick isn't. He's worried about, like, taking him down. Not necessarily killing him, but, like, for Gar, it's like, he was one of us, like, we got to do more to try and save him. Because at first he's, like, thinking, like, maybe it's just all the stuff that Crane gave him that kind of shifted this. He thinks maybe if they can get him away from Crane and off this stuff, that maybe... I don't know how Gar thinks this is going to be a happy ending. Like, no one knows that Jason is Red Hood, and he's the one causing all of this. So there's that, but still, well... Molly knows that he's Red Hood, but other than that, like, the general public doesn't know. So if he returns as Jason Todd, like, no one would associate that. So that's why I'm like, he could technically have a fresh start, but maybe it's also a thing of like, right, I did do what I do, and I can't just, like, return to the Titans. Because I think, and once again, that's why, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know nothing about Red Hood. Does he typically work alone? Like, he'll associate with the Bat family, but I don't know if I wonder if he's kind of a solo act where it's like, yeah, like, I distance myself because I'm willing to go to certain lengths that the rest of the heroes aren't in certain regards. I don't know. So I think that's fascinating. That, like, once again, that Gar is trying to go so far above me, especially because him and, like, they're friends and everything, but they always had, like, their back and forth, but it's still like, right, if I can save anyone under these circumstances, after losing Hank, I want to try and save Jason. I don't want to just, like, because I'm sure for him, it's like, if we lock him up, then, like, we're definitely not going to save him. We're going to definitely lose him forever. I think Gar looks at this as an opportunity, so he rolls up at Molly's to ask for help. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where that ends up going, especially because Gar is kind of going against the Titans in that regard. Following his own side of things, and maybe he's in a right to do that. Who knows? Because the argument could be, is Jason too far gone? And even, like I said, even if you do bring him back, like, how does that erase him killing Hank and all the death and destruction that's followed because of him? Because of his own issues. It's going to definitely be interesting. I'm sure, like, the Red Hood storyline potentially probably got answered in the comics, but whatever the case may be, I'm very interested to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, low light to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.